It is Sunday, November 22nd, 2026. We've reached the free agency filing periods of the MLB offseason, and the Chicago White Sox have once again been dispatched in the playoffs by the Baltimore Orioles. Unfortunately, we did win the wild card series against the Yankees. As I suspected, their offense was very much so an issue, even though their pitching staff is incredible. Um, you'll see in the Cy Young voting, I think they had at least two of the top three guys in voting there. We beat them 3-0 game one, 4-1 game two. You know, just kind of an average series. Sandy Alcantara pitches well in that game after kind of a disappointing regular season end. And then we get swept by the Orioles, who have beaten us in the last three postseasons. Although they once again lost the World Series, as I'll show you in a moment. So they are about as cursed as us with the National League that we are with them. Just like, by the time we got to the playoffs, I didn't think we had a good team. The bats go really quiet. Pitching is not good. We don't allow less than 5 runs in any of these games. And the Orioles beat us again. And yeah, like, you know who they are. I've shown you them a couple times because they are our mortal enemies. Kyle Stowers is still kicking for them, 24 homers, but Gunnar Henderson, another great year turned in by him. He is on his own track to the Hall of Fame right now. Already almost 27 WAR by the time he's 25. They added Ke'Bryan Hayes, who is kind of a defense-first guy at this point in his career. An interesting team. Adley Rutschman, not a great season after his, career standard that he's set over the past two seasons. And the pitching staff is okay, but that's why they lost, I think, in the World Series, if we check that out, to the Reds, who are a fun team in their own right. So this is kind of a realistic preview of what I think Major League Baseball in real life is shaping up into, which is, the Reds and the Orioles re-ushering in the 70s once again, and hopefully the A's and the Pirates come along too. But Ellie De La Cruz, again, is their backbone. But this team is kind of worse than what they've been. Their pitching staff is amazing, and I think Hunter Green won the Cy Young in the National League. So they win the World Series with a lineup of, relatively their guys right now. Joey Gallo, I don't even know why he's still in the league. But anyways, this is how it goes. They beat the Astros in the championship series. The Nationals make it all the way there in the NL. They have a good team as well with James Wood. An incredible offense. Dylan Cruz, James Wood, Robert Hassel, Tommy White, Keibert Ruiz, Colt Keith. Pitching staff just not there for the Nats. And if they upgrade that, then their ceiling is World Series caliber. But that's how the season shook out for us. We've made it to the offseason, and I'll show you some of the moves we made. Nothing too major at this point, but we did do some certain things. I put Austin Bergner on the 40-man roster once again after his really good season in AAA, 3.77 ERA. He pitched 4 innings for us 2 years ago, so if he pitches in 2027, it'll be 3 years since his last major league action. He's out of option years, but I would keep him in the, depending on how he does in spring training, I would keep him up with us and have him be a long man kind of guy. He's also a leader, so he's a valuable player to keep. He would have been a free agent, and he wanted like $1 million. I DFA'd Billy Sullivan. He's out until I think like June or July with his UCL tear, and he might just be done. So I didn't want to keep him on the 40-man roster. What else did I do? We DFA'd Harry Ford. He ends up with the Twins. DFA Josh Hood. He ends up with the Brewers. DFA Gage Workman, who ends up with the Guardians. We pick up the team option on Sandy Alcantara. We'll see what he can do in another year with us, a full season. And we do pick up the option on Luis Robert. I didn't feel confident in any other options, and we have a lot of money available. So I didn't feel bad giving him only $20 million when we could have probably, traded or signed a guy that would probably do just as well for $10 million less, but I'd rather just keep him around. Taylor Rogers is gone. And then in November, DFA Rodolfo Nolasco, who's a free agent. We trade Willie Adames to get off his contract after he finished the season very, very poorly for us. I just didn't want to be on the hook for $10 million for a guy that I didn't even really want to play. We pick up Johnny Brito, who we immediately DFA, and he's a free agent, and Randy Vasquez, who is also a free agent. So we really just got off the contract of Adames. We saved $10 million in this deal. We signed a new trainer and a new scout. The other trade we made was Yennier Cano, who a bunch of teams were calling on, and Dave Novosel, who got $7.5 million in arbitration, and I don't think he's worth that at all, for Egui Rosario, who can play third base, second base, and is a right-handed utility bat. He's making $3 million, but better than a reliever who's making $7.5. Colas, Soriano, Stever, all in arbitration, get some contracts. And then here's the big deal we made. We have traded for Alex Bregman. Now, in the corresponding move, Bregman's probably going to play first. He was awful at third. I just needed a bat, and he's not under contract for much longer. He can actually opt out after this year. And I got the Pirates to retain half the salary, so he's only going to get paid, if he opts in, $13.4 million for these last 3 years, and really 2 years if he executes that player option. So this is not like a very high-risk kind of contract, even though he was just slightly above average as a hitter last year. I think these ratings are really good, and you'll see who we lost that he will replace. But we trade Matt Ager, whatever, Sean Mullen, Cole Seamus, Ryan Ritter, who was the one that I really didn't want to give up, but to save that much money we do, and Alvaro Mejias for Alex Bregman and Yorlin Calderon, who is on the Major League roster now, and he's a decent pitcher. Was purchased by Pittsburgh out of the American Association Independent League. Came up through AA and AAA and has been good. So he's in there. Alex Lang we signed to a $10 million extension after his career year for us. Even better than he was in Detroit. And we also traded away Jacob deGrom to get off his deal, and you see how poorly rated he is now. The Dodgers have him in the bullpen. We save about $14 million trading him away, getting Luke Barker, who immediately retired, and Devin Mann, who we DFA'd and is now a free agent. And then Andrew Vaughn rejected our qualifying offer. His ratings have come down a bit with our new scout, and I would not be willing to sign him to this deal that he wants. This is kind of disgusting to me. So I'm happy to have Alex Bregman. I mean, I'm not going to give you $40 million, Vaughn. You have not you won the MVP, but you haven't produced like one since then. So I'm not going to give you an MVP kind of contract for a guy that's just really a first baseman. And I would rather bring in Bregman for a way less risk contract. And even though you're a homegrown talent, we're done with Andrew Vaughn, it seems, unless he seriously comes down on the ask. Sam Hentges sticks around for almost $4.6 million, but he's angry because he's not the closer. I think he'll be okay by the time the season comes around, and he's got really good ratings. I'd like to keep him on the team. We made some moves in the minors, and that about wraps it up. We have 30 players on the 40-man roster right now. I think we are set in the outfield with the few guys we do have. We're lacking with righty options, so if anything were to happen, I would try to bring back George Springer, who's also a free agent. We need a second baseman. Yordis Valdez is here, but I'm not comfortable starting him just yet. Bregman and Pena locked down first base DH. And Bregman can also play third, obviously. McMahon is back. I thought about trading him, but he's been a good player for us, and we have some options in the minors. This contract is not too high of a risk, getting paid about $10 million this year. I did call up Cole Carrig to the 40-man roster because he was out of options, and he can play literally every position. Like, he can't play shortstop and catcher well, but he can be there. and he plays. He's capable everywhere, which is cool to have on the 40-man roster. Jimmy Crooks and Ronald Hernandez are only two catchers. I'd like to bring in a catcher to start for one of them. And then pitching-wise, right now the rotation is Alcantara, Romero, who is coming off an elbow injury, so I'm a bit worried about him. He might have to flex to the bullpen. Alex Lang, Conrad Bonert, who I'm comfortable starting, and Jonathan Stever, who had a great year last season. Still, I'd like to bring in one or two guys in free agency. I think Thomas White's a bit too young, but he'll be there soon. Chris Malden also could come up, third-round draft pick for us as a lefty reliever who's almost ready. These are our best guys in AAA right now. Kyle Morrison is up there with his 75 home run potential power. Jacob Walsh, Thomas White, Jackson Davis. I actually need to get these guys all scouted accurately here. So these ratings might come down in the next few weeks. I picked up Coleman Mizell from the independent leagues. Decent player. Gavin Turley up to a 55 rating with his 70 outfield range. I think that he right now is who I have pegged in to replace Luis Robert. Maybe not replace him, but at least come up to the big league club next year and fill that spot. I might give the qualifying offer to Robert depending on how he plays, but we'll see. Christopher Diaz, I believe I could start in Double-A Birmingham. 15th round draft pick, but for the Wisconsin River Rafters of the Northwoods League, I mean, like he had a 448 average, 525, 765, even better last season in that league. I believe he twice won the MVP. Wins the MVP in 26, wins the MVP in 25. And I really didn't understand why he was available in the 15th round for us. He's going to be a captain. Like, I'm very excited about Christopher Diaz, and I hope that he doesn't stagnate, because this bat right now, if it comes up, that's playable in the bigs. I'm very excited for him. Actually, I should put him on the short list of prospects that I have, along with Turley. And I mean, like, there are guys that I could put up there, but I don't see them as really having major league futures. Cooper Witten, at this point, I don't, unfortunately, for him. First round supplemental draft pick in 2025. But I think the depth in the minor leagues is much better than what it once was. Alpha Mosey, decent third base prospect, but he'll end up being a first baseman. Zion Rose, another one of these catchers that I'll probably end up trading. Luca Reyes, Eric Torres, Vaughn Necker, and Noah Franco. Yeah, that about does it for their minor leagues. Jeremy Buchholz has come up a lot, though, in his ratings. Anyways, here's what I'm targeting in the offseason here. We need a shortstop, we need a second baseman, we need a catcher, and we need one more starter. Now, if I look at the free agent market at this point, it's bare for our needs. Second base, we could bring back Brendan Rodgers. We already just had him, and I'm not going to pay him that much money. Juan Maestas can play third really well. He's one of the Cuban-generated free agents. I have offered him a major league deal. He's 26. He's a lefty, so maybe he sits in the minors for a year and then comes up for Ryan McMahon. I don't know yet. Bo Bichette, Willie Castro. I've looked at all these guys. They're underwhelming for me. I'd rather search for a trade option. And if they have good bats, they have bad gloves. Like Jeff McNeil, not putting him at second base anymore at this stage of his career. And then past that, not much else. Shortstop, again, kind of a similar spot. And guys that we've already tried. And starters, Zach Eflin, Kopech. Kopech, if he didn't have this personality class, he wasn't fragile. I mean, all things considered, I'm not going to sign him, but I'd like to have him back. I mean, he struggled for us. That's why we traded him in the first season, but he was a really competent starting pitcher for the Reds for a few years, wins the World Series, is finally a free agent, racks up 12.6 R-WAR with the Reds. Good career for Kopech, and the guy we traded for was some reliever that is, I think, off the team at this point. Patrick Sandoval is the only starter who I'd like. He wants $20 million and doesn't want to play for our manager, so it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Brian Abreu's also here, but he's more of a reliever. So I'm thinking that I have to trade for a starter, maybe Jesus Luzardo. He's a lefty. Kenta Maeda. Interesting. I'll consider these starters. Zach Eflin's hurt. Max Scherzer's old. Brady Singer has 3 pitches. Griffin Canning we already had. Luis Cessa I'll bring on a minor league contract, I think. And Giolito's around. He had a decent year for the Dodgers, but that's who we have starting pitcher-wise. I'll have to take I'll keep Sandoval on there. Who else are we missing out on covering? Carlos Correa I've thought about trading for. Or let's go position by position. Okay, shortstop. Averson Arteaga, not a great bat, but played well at shortstop for the Giants this year, and they have a lot of these kind of guys, middle infielders, and they didn't want all that much for him. Carlos Correa, obviously, I think the Twins will be they want to get off this contract, and it's very team friendly, so I would not be opposed to taking this on from them as it declines in his later years. But they do want like a good player. It's just a lot of the best players around, they start at Carlos Pena, but the Twins are starting at a guy like Bonert, who I'm not going to trade. He's too good of a starting pitcher. But like Ojeda, who is the number 59 prospect in baseball, only 17 though. I'd rather have a guy I can play right now, and maybe that bites us. But Correa is still a Gold Glove capable shortstop. Isn't that good with the bat, but maybe we bring him over and that changes. So he's target number 1. Kevin Made, also with the Twins, a backup plan if Correa doesn't work. Marcelo Mayer is fragile and on an extension for a few years, but I think option number 2, if we don't get Correa, the Red Sox are like really wanting to shed salary. Unfortunately, a lot of the good players they want to get rid of are redundant at the positions we need, or the positions we already have. Dansby Swanson at this stage in his career can't really hit, at least ratings-wise. But the Cubs are willing to give him up. I don't like this contract, though, as much as I like Correa's. Ezequiel Tovar, very good young shortstop for the Rockies. And given that he's under team control for so long, he'd be a guy that I'd be willing to give up a lot for. It's just he might end up being more of a second baseman in the latter stages of his career. Bobby Witt Jr., I don't know if he's really a shortstop, but he's on a cheaper contract. It would probably be cheaper to acquire Carlos Correa. But maybe I pick up Witt and we think about him at second. I don't know yet. Or I guess we don't need a second baseman. We have Ahuna. Carson Kelly, I'd be happy to bring back if he'd like to be brought back, but $16 million over 4 years is a bit rich. Luke Jackson, again, another guy I'd like to bring back after his good season with us in the half year. And then the starters and others that I talked about. Carlos Hernandez, an interesting buy low opportunity. So I think I'm most likely going to move forward on this Correa deal. I just think that it makes the most sense. And I'm going to look into who else they want, but like wanting a corner outfield prospect who probably won't develop, low adaptability. He's not screaming, can't miss to me. So if I do put him in this trade and try to retain some money, Zabala Baldwin is a good bat in AAA. Lastris. They want good minor league depth. I think I'm going to have to do it. So, anyways, I'll check back. Correa will be a White Sox by the time we get to the regular season, so I will see you on 2027 opening day with a prospect report, a longer video, I think, and showing off the complete White Sox organization. Right now we have some some renovations to undergo. All right. See you later.